Hi, welcome today to William Anwana, who is the Chief Financial Officer for Corporate and Investment Banking and Sterling Bank. And also, he was our Enterprise CXO of the Year 2020 for AfricaCom. So very excited to have you here today, William, on this virtual environment to sit down and have a chat about kind of what you've been up to, some of your work. But yeah, could you start with just an introduction for yourself, please?
Hi, Emily. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm really excited to be here. Short introduction. Okay, my name is William Anwana, obviously. I work with Sterling Bank as the CFO / business partner of the Corporate and Investment Banking Directorate. So essentially what I do is to act as the well, you could call it the big brother of the directorate, because I'm the one who sets the direction in terms of financial metrics. Okay, you guys should do this. Let's cut costs. Let's maximize income retention strategies and all that. So that really sets the tone for what we're able to accomplish in terms of pure numbers. Aside that, I'm also a writer. I'm a speaker. A motivator as well. So aside my work in the bank, I'm really interested in driving motivation for the next generation in terms of understanding things like leadership, finance, management, communication, and entrepreneurship. So it's that's really it in a nutshell.
Lovely. And you've also written a book, haven't you? So could you tell us a little bit more about that before we kind of go into some questions?
Yeah. Okay. So the book is called Entrepreneur First Class. And it's subtitled Old Truths and New Insights on Starting Your Business. So how did it come about? It was born like last year, right? This was shortly after the pandemic struck, and myself and my wife were having a conversation. What are we going to do? What are the things that we want to try and bring to the fore in this period? And she said something to me. She said, "Look, you've always had a gift for writing, right? And why don't you explore something around that?" And I thought to myself, okay, I could do that, but I was sort of stuck about what to write. There were so many things that were flying through my head. And then she told me, why don't you target newbie entrepreneurs, right? Because in this season, we're seeing a lot of people going through things like job losses, etc. And it would be nice for people to have an idea of what they need to know before they start a business, because people just think it's as easy as, I have this idea and I want to start something, let's go ahead, but they're not taking into account things like the purpose of the business. They don't have a firm idea of finance and accounting. They don't know how to innovate. They don't know how important it is for them to register their business, etc. And she said, okay, you have this wealth of knowledge. Why don't you put it together in a book form and, put it out there? So I said, okay, fine, I'll think about it. So I thought about it. And, within 2 months I was done. So I was like, okay, this is nice.
So what motivates you to do what you do? It's obviously driven by like a passion.
Oh, yes. So essentially, I think for me, when I look back at my journey, it's really been a journey of I think I'll say determination is the word, because I didn't start out with a numeric degree. I wasn't your typical finance guy. I didn't have an accounting degree, an economics degree, none of that. I actually came from a literate background. I read English in school, right? But I found myself in banking. But each time I found myself going through certain departments, and they would be like, you have this thing for numbers. Why don't you try, going through that sort of route? And so I took it on, and I was struggling initially, but I thought to myself that, look, numbers is really telling a story. Now, if you can find what connects the dots in terms of numbers and you put your mind to it, you should be able to do something tangible or produce something tangible. So I thought about it and I was like, okay, fine, let me concentrate and focus on getting the numbers done. And I did that, and my career was transformed, because like 10 years later, I found myself appointed as the CFO, advising the same people with things like Excel, which I once dreaded. So when I think back on the journey, and what I tell a lot of young people today really is that, in the words of Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're correct. So if you think you can do something and you put your mind to it, you're gonna achieve it. So that's really what drives me. That's really what motivates me.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And I think there's obviously you've got like a real energy to what you do. So I do have another question. You obviously have a foundation as well, which we'll touch upon it a little bit later. But could you just kind of give us a summary of your vision?
Okay, excellent. So the foundation is called the William and Methlin Anwana Foundation. Methlin is the name of my wife, and well, she was the one who thought about it actually. So, so kudos to her. So the vision of the foundation really is centered around giving, right? Because in our community, in our environment, we were raised by families that were really focused on giving back. Right, so it's like, you're coming from this place, you've been blessed with some gifts, you've been blessed with a lifestyle, but you need to reach back, not just to your immediate family, but also to the people in your community who might not be as privileged as you are or you were, right? So it's really focuses on education for the girl child, especially, and really the less privileged in society, because my personal ethos really is that everybody has a gift. Everybody has something unique to them that they can offer to the world. But where they don't have that opportunity to provide that gift or to serve that gift, they tend to think that life is all about, we have to struggle, we have to do this. But when they have an opportunity to display such a gift, you find out that their lives will be transformed. So really, that's what the foundation is all about: giving and providing an opportunity.
So I think, especially coming from like the pandemic, where different places have been impacted more than others, but how can a company, right now talent is so important, and nurturing talent and finding talent, how can they find a gift and really nurture the gift amongst their staff and their local communities?
All right, another excellent question. So for me, it sort of recalls the words of Shakespeare. If you read As You Like It, that was one of his more popular plays, and there was a particular quote that he put in one of his characters. He said, "Sweet are the uses of adversity, which ugly and venomous like a toad, yet wears the precious jewel in its head." So what he was saying really is that, with adversity or with crisis, ordinarily you would think that this is something that should blow over and like, oh God, please let it just go as quickly as possible. But in that situation, you find out that there are opportunities that you can leverage on, right? Another gentleman, Paul Romer, the senior vice president of the World Bank, also said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So in this period, you're discovering that people who have leveraged on the opportunities that they see are able to take that on and build themselves up. If you look at people like Elon Musk, what has he been able to do in the span of a year, right? Going from, I think, number 10 on the richest list to number 1 and number 2, depending on how you look at it. So really, it's for companies to, for me, really look inwards. There are so many people in your organizations who have a particular talent. Perhaps right now they are not using that talent, maybe because they're in some other place where they feel that that's the only thing that they can do. But if you take time out to assess the potential of your staff, you'll be surprised at what they'll bring to the fore. So, for example, a lot of people didn't know that I could write, especially in the direct line of my superiors. And then when I produced this book, they were like, "Dude, where did this come from?" But I was like, I had this all along, right? But until I was given that opportunity or I dug into that potential, I couldn't produce it. So everybody has a gift, right? If only they could get that opportunity to shine it, right? When you focus light on something, it shines, it illuminates, right? So when they have the opportunity to display what they have, you'll be surprised at how far they can go and how far you can go with your organization.
Yeah, companies need to kind of be looking outside the kind of the rigid role structures that people have at the moment, really finding ways to kind of spot talent and really bring it out. I mean, I think your journey is prime example of that. Do you have any like interesting stories from the move to finance and that kind of, I guess it's a huge shift.
Okay, yeah, I have an interesting one, and this is really centered around when I first started core finance, right? So a few minutes ago, I alluded to the fact that I read English, and I was your normal numbers guy. So prior to when I entered finance, as a department, my experience of using things like Excel was limited. All I could do at a point was use the auto sum function because I thought that was it. You put in the numbers, you auto sum, and I'm like, yay, figures, right? So I got to this department, and the head of the department was like, okay, you've been redeployed to me. That's excellent, excellent. How good is your knowledge of Excel? And I was trying to be modest. I said, oh well, it's about 70% efficacy because I thought that was a guru already. So he was like, fine, excellent. So we're going to be doing a lot of Excel stuff here. You know how to use VLOOKUP, right? And I was like, VLOOK, I don't think. So he was like, dude, 70%? Okay, fine. You must know how to use mid function, right? Mid. I don't think I quite know that one, sir. And I was like, okay, all right, fine. But at least, surely, you must know how to use concatenate. I was like, what? Sorry, I don't think I can do this anymore. Could you just transfer me somewhere else? And then immediately after that, he showed me all sorts of things on Excel. It was looking like the matrix, red lines, green lines, functions. I was like, what in the world is all this? And I think I had like brain fever for the next 2 days. It was during that time after my nightmares that I had that thought that, look, this is something that you can learn, right? If you put your mind to it, you can do it, right? And that thought of whether you think you can or whether you think you can't was just reverberating in my head. So I decided not to run away. I decided instead to go back and to focus and to learn. And because mindset is everything. Once you have the right mindset about something, you're going to achieve wonders, right? So I went back there and I put my mind to it, and then slowly I was able to learn and learn and learn. So it was. I tell this story all the time, especially to people that I try to teach about things like entrepreneurship and finance. So I'm like, if I could do that coming from where I was, you can do it.
And the digital revolution, as we know, is kind of flying. Things have had to accelerate way faster. Companies have had to kind of digitalize faster. But what do you think from a finance side and the kind of the technologies coming from that? What do you think could be the best outcome for the finance industry as a result of the kind of technological revolution that's kind of coming at us at like 1,000 miles per hour?
All right, so for me, I think it's very important for people in finance to be able to delineate exactly what will be achieved through things like AI and robotics. For me, a lot of things that we do in finance are really manual, especially if you're the company that hasn't invested so much in technology, right? Because in finance operations, they do lots of debits and credit stuff. They have to post, they have to reconcile and all that. And these are things that really robotics can achieve, right? So for instance, your month-end reports, your performance reports, these are things that can be processed once you feed in the data. So what this does essentially is to free up the thinking part of your brain, right? Because if you're bogged down with manual processes, you're going to have a lot of time to think. So what this does is to free up the thinking part of your brain, and you're left to focus on the strategic decisions. Okay, how can we move forward? What are the predicted things that we should be looking at? In what area is the economy flowing towards? How can we leverage on that? Are there things that we need to cut back, etc.? So having left all those manual things aside, you can now devote your time to think, really. So that is the key advantage that technology brings to the fore. I think that a lot of companies could do more, especially with embracing technology. There's this sort of fear, especially found in Africa or in some countries in Africa, that, oh, the robots are coming and they're coming to take our jobs. But that's not the case, right? All they're doing really is to free you up so that you can really focus. And if you find out that finance in that respect is not really for you, then you can refocus and do something else that is better suited to you. But it's a win-win. It's a win-win at the end of the day.
What do you think are the most critical changes business leaders must make beyond just mindset?
They need to, I think, rigidity I think rigidity is a bane, right? Because if you're the kind of person who likes to focus on like, okay, this is the way things are done, right? You do A, you do B, you do C, and then you get to your destination. You're going to find yourself at a disadvantage, you know. So, for instance, people who thought that work could only be done in the office, right, found out pretty quickly that look, if you continue to toe that line, you're going to find yourself out of business very soon. Even someone like me at a point, my mindset was the office was the only place I could get work done. And if I'm not in the office, then it's not going to happen. But here comes COVID that has proven beyond reasonable doubt that you can work from anywhere. So for me, it was either, okay, I build myself an office in the sky, or I find a way to work remotely. And I had to make that switch. So rigidity really is a key factor. You cannot afford to be rigid. Things are changing at a very rapid clip, and you need to be able to adapt very, very quickly. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself behind the curve. You know, so rigidity would be a key thing that they need to embrace. Another key thing would be to emphasize problem-solving skills. Problem-solving skills. If you look at, I can't remember which organization now, the one that really brings out the top learning skills that you need to embrace for, I think, 2022 or something. It's either the World Bank or one of those things. And they emphasized problem-solving as one of the key skills that needs to be imbibed by people. Right, so you leave aside things like manual processes and all that. It's emphasizing things like creativity, problem solving, you know, analytical reasoning. These are the things that are going to drive the globe, right, in the next few years and beyond. So rigidity, lack of rigidity, problem solving, analytical thinking, very key.
You know, you kind of have to accept things do go wrong. And so do you have any interesting times or, you know, examples of where you wish you'd done something differently? And if you do, which I think we all have, how would you do it again if you could?
That's a tough cookie. I'm trying to look for a really key example. But I think generally speaking, if I look back to say the last or beyond the last 2-3 years in my career, I was sort of the type that would really think that, okay, things could only be done in one way, right? But there's so many ways to skin a cat, right? So rather than just fixating on a particular route that, okay, for instance, if we need to make profit and the profit needs to be X, we need to do this, right? And we're focusing on towing this path. But you know, if you take time to expand your mind or expand your thinking, you discover that, look, hey, rather than just doing this, why don't we do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this? You know, so again, it goes back to what I said about creativity, right? Thinking cliche, out of the box, but out of the box really is the best way to describe it, because when you free your mind from rigid concepts, you know, you're more able to innovate, right? Innovation is not necessarily bringing something new to the table, but it's looking at an existing problem with a different mindset or with a new set of eyes, right? So I think that'll be my submission on that.
It's definitely something we're seeing the best, you know, the companies that are really kind of thriving or, you know, going beyond just surviving during the pandemic. Again, another cliche, but I think they are the ones who, as you say, who are embracing this risk and change and creativity. Yeah. You know, going beyond just your normal role. But yeah, I'm really, obviously, William, you're obviously, you know, loads of brilliant, interesting projects you're working on, but I'm really interested to hear more about your foundation. Could you share a little bit more then about why you started this, and kind of, I know you've talked about the importance of giving so far, but why it really is important this year and going forward for companies and individuals to think about giving.
Right. Okay. So I'll share deeper insights into the vision. So I was doing some research, right? And I was putting a paper together, and I did some research about Africa in general, and I discovered some very interesting things. You know, so for instance, the UN has said that by 2050, right, the global population is going to explode by an additional 1.1 or 1.2 billion people. Now, out of that growth, 50% is going to emanate from Africa, right? 50%. Now, currently in the continent, our resources are being shared by so many people. For instance, here in Nigeria, we have, as everybody knows, we're the most populous Black nation. Yet the resources that are on ground are not really, they're not really sufficient to cater to everybody. So I'm thinking, look, if by 2050 we're going to add 1.1 billion people, and we're already at this level, what is going to happen then? And so for me, it's like, how can we begin from now to be ready for that future when it comes? And the answer for me is education, and not just education, but it's enlightenment, right? Because you have to think in a particular way if you're going to get things done. The future belongs to those who prepare for it, right? So I think that teaching the principles of finance, teaching the principles of business, teaching the principles of leadership, of communication, of entrepreneurship is key to transforming the African continent, right? And if we get our people ready, if we get our children ready, and we pay it forward, by the time that future comes, we're more prepared, to meet it. So focusing on the next generation, particularly the girl child, which don't appear to have as much opportunities to go to school as their male counterparts, and then the less privileged in the society, who are able to provide things that you might not even necessarily think of. Once you give them the opportunity to transform their mindset and their way of thinking, the society is going to be much better for it. So that is really what drives the vision of the foundation. If you get that many people to imbibe that thought, and they pay for it by bringing in their family, bringing in their friends, and everybody is like a collective thing, right? The society is going to be transformed, and you would have proper leadership in all cadres of society, and you have people who are able to manage not just their families, but also their companies, their nations, wherever they find themselves, whether it's the public space or the private space, and you have a country or a continent that is able to run.
Thank you so much. I really, really, really enjoyed speaking with you. I guess if we really maybe just like a few tips for anyone watching this, in leadership positions or not, who wants to kind of get better at, looking after their community, nourishing their talent. What kind of last piece of advice would you give them for kind of just doing it and getting ahead?
Right. So number one thing I will tell them is to reach out to me. Okay, just kidding. I think the most important thing to remember or to keep in mind is that leadership is not it's not a function of people, right? Leadership doesn't start with people. Leadership starts with yourself. Leadership starts with self-discovery, because you have discovered something about yourself, right, which is a gift, and you are bringing it out. People are attracted to your gift because your gift is what gives you value. It's just like a tree, right? A tree produces its fruit. The tree doesn't need to run after people. It is people who see the fruit and like, hey, I want that, and they go to the tree and pluck the fruit. So once you're able to find what gives you value and you produce it, it attracts people. Right, so that's the one thing I would ask you to remember. And then influence, being able to influence your society is another key thing. Just as an aside, I also run some master classes, right? Basically on those 5 focus areas I mentioned, leadership, management, entrepreneurship, blah blah blah. And we talk about these things a lot, right? And we found that it's beginning to impact so many people. So developing that sort of community also, I think, would help a lot. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And yeah, I'm sure everyone will find this really interesting. So please leave your comments in the section below, and have any questions for William, do feel free to get in touch with him. But thank you, William, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, you too. Have a nice day.
You too.